interest of time, I will just roll ahead as we call upon our dignitaries to the stage. I would like to call upon, of course, our moderator, Dr. Malini Shankar, I.A.S. retired Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University, as she takes the dais. I'd also like to call upon Mr. Andrew Ward, the Sales Director, APAC, ODG. We have Jillian, Carson, who will be joining us online. Captain Chinna Ruparaju, General Manager, Competence, Development and Training, Wilhelmsen Ship Management. Captain Pravesh, Diwan, Founder and Director of KARCO, can you have you, sir? Captain Prabhat, Nigam, Founder and President, Maritime Trainers Guild, and Uday Chaitanya Ganivada, Country Manager, India, Srilanka and Bangladesh, DNV. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall first our dignitaries to the stage. And we will have it over to Dr. Malini Shankar. Crew, please say that your microphones are back on stage, please.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We have a full panel here, right? Very good. With Jillian joining us online. Yeah, Jillian, are you able to hear me? Are you muted? You're not muted, so I think we have technical.
How about we try that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's perfectly.
Yes.
So,
Wonderful.
welcome aboard, Jillian, all the way from Australia, and welcome to all the panelists who've taken the time to be here. I'm going to make very brief opening remark, and then the way it goes is each one gets, in the interest of conserving time, 3 minutes, and hopefully we'll have more interesting dialogue with participants. There was a question in one of the sessions yesterday, which I was very tempted to answer, but I didn't want to intervene. It says, is there any plan for continuing education? Very, very briefly, that was a question posed. And there will be, I hope you will speak on that. The National Education Policy actually talks of continuing, not only continuing education, but also something called credit bank, where you build your credit and you can actually step out of education, come back into education and build your credit so that you, at some point, you can get a degree. He will speak more on that. But as far as the Indian Maritime University is concerned, there are steps being taken. We've already mapped the COC and Master Mariners course onto the academic requirements of of a central university. And soon we should be offering a more flexible program that will allow COC holders to get at least an MBA degree, which will help them, a master's degree, which will help the COC holders translate the education and the training towards sure jobs or even diversify their future. So those are two things I thought. There are other things which emanated from yesterday's discussions, and I think we are talking about AR, VR, everything, but there are places, there are universities and there are training institutions, there are countries which have already gone into metaverse, right? So I suppose we also have to look at how quickly we can keep up with the changes and expectations. With those words, maybe because Jillian has been waiting for a long time online, so if the panelists are okay, I will start with her. Jillian, over to you. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, I better start my clock then. Thank you so much, and I really wish I could be there in person. It looks like you're having an amazing event. What I want to do is to start off with my discussion. I'd like to start with what we know, and that we know that we're in a smart age. And if we're starting to think what the future training will be, let's continue to look at what we know. So we have smartphones, we have wearable devices, we have these connected devices. Within this Internet of Things, which I'm sure you've already been discussing, we have supported networks. We have sharing of data in near real time and data analytics. Informatics really at that heart, and really informatics or maritime informatics is that science of collecting and processing and storing and using this data. So what else do we know? Well, we know that we're in the midst of what is called Industry 4.0. And we are on the cusp of Industry 5.0. So if you use the QR code that I believe that you have on your tables, you'll find that there's a poster that was developed by colleagues of mine at the University of Tasmania, the Australian Maritime College last year. And it looks at this connection between Industry 4.0, the Operator 4.0, and Education 4.0. So how can we address being human and looking at those future skill sets and that educational element in an increasingly digital and connected world? I'd like to present 3 core points on this one. The first one is innovation. As humans, we are innovators. We work with data. We work with the tools that are available to us. We can now begin to innovate in a manner that is shared with our digital counterparts, learning with and working with the technology to meet identified needs. And those needs are always changing. We have to have a bit of a crystal ball to really know where it's going to be in the future. But if we're able to innovate and continue that innovation and work with those digital counterparts, we'll be able to look to that future. I think the second key point for me is trust. If we're looking at leadership skills and those human skills, leadership skills are always based at some element on trust, on respect, a shared sense of purpose towards a goal. And as we begin to move into a cyber-enabled environment in Industry 5.0, I believe that we need to trust that what we do, what we know as humans, what we can do, and also then to trust what the machines can do. So this means not necessarily understanding the intricacies of the technology, but knowing what it should do and then knowing when it isn't doing it. And the third point I'd like to bring forward is collaboration. So I love a definition that a friend of mine once shared many years ago. An expert is someone who knows more and more about less and less, until they know absolutely everything about that. So I believe a core skill set, and just as you mentioned earlier, our core skill set for the future is this ability to continually learn, to collaborate, and to realize that we are communities as experts, that we need to interact with each other and have, as my colleagues have put in the poster, this concept of cognitive interaction with intelligent machines. Now, I think there's going to be more questions and discussion, but I'd probably best leave it there for now.
Thank you so much, Jillian. I now request Mr. Andrew Ward to say a few words.
Great, thanks, Dr. Malini. A couple of caveats to start off with. I work for a technology company, so within my employment contract it states I have to use the word ecosystem, and I have to talk about the civil aviation industry as well. So, yeah, it is interesting, right? There was a question earlier about the administration burden on the seafarers. I think the technology is already coming through. You have bill of ladings now that are coming through, that are sorting this issue out in hours rather than days and weeks. So I think technology is there to help the seafarer. It will take a lot of the hassle away from port calls and these sort of things. One thing I would like to say actually is, I mean, as a vendor, as a provider of training, I think we have to look at the market. What I've heard over the last couple of days is maybe we need to start providing more content based on future skill careers for seafarers. You know, the maritime journey, giving that content into our learning management systems, perhaps to say, this is where you are now, this is where you can be in the future. So perhaps that's something we should be working on together to elaborate. The other area that I'm quite passionate about is the systems are getting more and more technologically advanced, right? You're not opening up engines like you used to. You're having to provide the manufacturers to go on board and actually do the day-to-day servicing of equipment. But the manufacturers are very resistant to support that content coming onto the platforms. So what you find, we've got 1,500 clients globally with all their own learning management system. Each one of those clients is having to create their own content specific to equipment that needs to be serviced or supported, which in my mind is crazy. So if you don't have every player playing their part in the ecosystem, it breaks down. So I mean, I would urge all the ship operators and owners within the room to actually push the manufacturers to really drive that content to be made available, because it has huge consequences if it's not and if things go wrong. I think we do see the need for more asynchronous training as well. I think people are more, like Captain Arun was saying, people are taking control of their own careers. People learn differently. We have different kinds of technology. We have VR, we have gamification, we have micro-learning, which we're developing as well. So that builds into that individual learning journey, I think, which is becoming more, people are accepting that and they're wanting to do that. So I think from our point of view, we are engaging a lot more with the training centres, and Dr. Malini, I think we need to have a chat about how we can get content earlier into the system about what's happening aboard the ships. You have the cadets doing obviously their STCW, they're doing all these things on the engine side. There's a lot of content out there that they're going to be experienced to, but they only experience it when they're on board the ships. So we can provide that content, and we can provide it to the training institutes, so people are aware, the cadets are aware of what's happening. So I think the more people are aware of what's going on and what's happening on board the ships, they can set their mindsets correctly. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it is an ecosystem. I think it's more than ever. I think the data points are coming together for us as well as a technology company. We see a development, and there will be a development of central databases of seafarers, right, with their capabilities, with their competencies, with their service records. A lot of that data now is individually stored within each ship operator. I think that's where it should be. But I think going forward, I can see a lot of the operators now working with companies such as ourselves to say, okay, let's open this up a little bit and see whether we can get any insights into where people are now, where they need to be. So that's, I think, the next thing. The human element is the technology that hasn't really developed yet, and I think that's the next step forward.
Thank you, Andrew. For the benefit of the youngsters who are sitting there, and because we didn't put the introductions there, Jillian is the Managing Director of JCJ Consulting Australia, and she was heading the Nautical Institute earlier. Andrew Ward is the Sales Director of APAC OTG. Now I would like to invite Captain Chinna Ruparaju, who is the General Manager, Competence Development and Training in Wilhelmsen Ship Management, to speak on this.
Thank you, ma'am. Respected members of the panel, my friends in the room, and those who are watching us online. I'm grateful to Shankar and his team for this opportunity to be here. In my position with Wilhelmsen, I have the unique opportunity to be a part of the competence and development team globally. In addition, I head one of the best recognized training institutes in India. At the risk of running foul of what Captain Arun said, yes, it is a training center. Sure, thank you. So, in my opinion, one of the biggest challenges facing ship managers with respect to maritime training is the forget curve, which none of us can avoid. A lot of discussion goes into, customizing training solutions and, getting the right mix of content, which when we offer a training program, very often it is triggered by either an incident on board a ship or a new regulation or a new technology which has just been released into the market and so on. And I believe everybody has the right interests in their hearts. We try and come up with the correct solutions. But the big challenge is when the seafarer really is challenged and faced with a situation, and he needs to retrieve the learning that he picked up in the past. It may not be immediately after the training was completed. It may not be in the next 10 years. It may be 5-10 years down the line. It may be a few years down the line. And there is no guarantee that he will be able to implement all the learnings that he picked up during the training that was formally given to him. And well, do we have the answer to this dilemma? Honestly, I don't think so. However, I think we're all learning together. I think OTG has a good platform. Wilhelmsen is using that. Captain Diwan has a good platform available as well. There are a number of products in the market. So we are constantly trying to get to the right philosophy, the perfect mix of instructor-led training together with practical hands-on training sessions, and then perhaps some self-learning content to boost or sort of retrieve the learning which was, in the memory of the seafarer. Also, in my opinion, seafarer he doesn't say no to any new challenges thrown at him, he or she, excuse me. They tend to take on. We say new regulation, yes, bring it on. We say inspection next port, and one more inspection in the evening after that. They say okay, bring it on. They're very hungry that way. They're eager to perform. They're very okay with taking on targets, and I think they're smart enough to look for answers if they have a question in mind, provided we allow technology to leave it at their fingertips. And they should be allowed to retrieve this knowledge. And that's where I believe OTG and Captain Diwan's solution is important. But at the same time, as a traditionalist, I'm a trainer, so we play an important role in building a platform so that they can take the lead when they're necessary. And this brings me back to my original statement. I said I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here because I believe this is where I get to collaborate with partners in the industry and enable upliftment of the maritime industry as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ruparaju. So we've heard about collaborations, asynchronous training, and forget curve, right? So let's move to Captain Pravesh Diwan, who is the founder of KARCO. Welcome, and request you invite you.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, thanks to Shankar for this opportunity to share some thoughts. When we are discussing internally amongst the panelists here, informal discussions, and the thought was about training or learning. So we have to be very careful about using the word training now. After that interaction we had. Sharing my personal experience, I was an onboard trainer. Please bear with that. So I was an onboard trainer and working with several principals. And the experience was, the management was investing their money. They were committed to training. But what was the actual experience on board? So land up on the ship and, the conventional training methods were being deployed. And the experience was not exciting at all. The guys were just going through the motions of, sitting through a training session. So the idea was how do we evolve out of this situation? And in the same seafarer, 10 guys sitting in the room and watching a video or doing a CPT or whatever. And this was 4 o'clock, but traditionally everybody knows 4 o'clock is the time and we have a training session. And virtually you have to drag these guys into the training room or the mess room or the smoke room for this session. And come 7 o'clock in the evening and you are showing a Hollywood flick here. And they come running in, and they bring in the beer and they bring in the chips and they bring in the Coke, whatever. So the trigger was there that maybe it was rather than telling the seafarers how to learn, it was probably time for us to learn how to teach. And that's where the focus was. And the industry was evolving very fast, and we all know that technology is a very commonly used word. But we are not responsible as an industry, we are not responsible for new technology. What we are responsible for is the adaptation of new technology. Our domain is very, focused maritime domain. So one of the things that I realized personally was the last mile delivery of knowledge, content, learning. We are talking, all the wise guys of the industry, they are talking about rules, regulations. But as I think Captain Nal also mentioned, it is the guy on the, who's the front runner. And so how do I reach out to him? So the human element became very important, that, how do I communicate to that seafarer? And everybody in this room will agree that, we are not dealing with a singular nationality. We are dealing with over 50 nationalities globally. They come with each nationality brings their own baggage of cultural backgrounds, educational backgrounds. So one of the commonly used marketing pitch I use is, let's do it the Hollywood style. Because that's what binds the entire seafaring community. Whether we like it, we don't like it, we have our opinions about it. So my simple submission is that, yes, the compliance standards are going up. We are just loading the seafarer with more and more and more. So the focus is shifting on to the effective delivery. The word effective becomes very relevant. We don't have more than 24 hours. So that means the tools we use may be gamification, or maybe use simulators, or micro learning. Perfect. Go for it. Whatever suits your appetite. But we cannot lose the focus that 10 people are deciding for 10,000 people. So it is our responsibility not to just dwell upon the regulations or learning methodologies. That effectiveness has to be incorporated in our scheme of things. So it is, and we all know that also someone mentioned that we are integrating with the rest of the world. The shipping as a whole is no longer insular. So again, if we are talking about the seafarer, or not only the seafarer, we all know that what works better for us in terms of learning, in terms of training. So I would just wind up by saying that focus on the last mile delivery. That is very, very important. It's very easy to draw big documents and big processes, but do give it a thought as to how does the last guy, the seafarer, consume information in an effective manner. And that's all I have to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Captain Diwan. Now I request Captain Prabhat Nigam for sharing his views. You can use the podium 3 minutes.
Namaste. Isn't it wonderful? Namaste. I don't have to see my watch. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Namaste. Every time. Namaste. And it also makes me feel more Indian. There is again a QR code Shankar told me. And I will be telling something about, or talking something about national education policy and outcome-based education. Before I start on that, a word of caution was given to me that your discourse is very technical, it might go over everybody's head. So I will look in that corner now and talk, where the students are sitting. I have tried my best to bring it to a level that you people can understand, and I believe that everybody else will understand. We have been for past several years since our independence living under the lure of Macaulay's education system. Lot of work was done to sort of cast off this education system. NCRT, National Council of Education Research and Training, was one good effort which was made, and it was quite successful to some extent. The present government and the previous kept on working on a system which is more global, international, yet with a Indian Sanskritic touch. And they came out with a national education policy which spoke about not 10 plus 2, but 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. And now it has been implemented since 2022, it has implemented. 5 is first 5 years up to class 1. And then class 2, 3, 4 is next 3. And 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 is the next 3. And then up to 10th is the next 3. And after 10th, that is your intermediate and the certificate course, which leads to degree, is the plus 4. Why this? There were 9 focus areas. If you can just scan the QR code, it will be in front of you, the 9 focus areas. It's there? Okay. So when I speak, you'll be able to relate about it. And amongst these 9 focus areas, I'll talk only about 4, which relates to maritime education and training. The number 1 is multidisciplinary and holistic education. Yesterday, Ganivada University was speaking about holistic education, that it is not just maritime training, but also holistic education. So that is the focus area number 1. How you time it, how you plan it, is under various universities' power and scope, and how you do it. Focus area number 5 is motivated, energized, and capable faculty. I repeat the word, motivated, energized, and capable faculty. I would like to ask you cadets one question. If I make a program for you and do not give you a choice, you have to follow, which is happening today. Say, be it BSc Nautical Science or BTech Marine Engineering, whichever course you are under, a fixed program is there. Or I open some windows and vistas where you see for yourself, इस लाइन में मुझे ये पढ़ना होगा, इधर ये पढ़ना होगा, इससे मैं ये बनूंगा. Which one would you choose? Second one. That is called outcome-based education. That is the result of this national education policy, which is outcome-based education. You decide. It is no more teacher-centric education. I may be a very good teacher of navigation or stability, but I am of no use if he doesn't want to learn navigation and stability. Maybe he wants to learn something else. Maybe his interest is something else. If I drag him into that, he may get a degree, but that is not his passion. Here comes what Dr. Malini Shankar said. Whatever you study stays in a bank called ABC, Academic Bank of Credits. You leave that, go to another subject of your choice. After certain years, you feel like coming back to this particular course where you had studied 2 years ago, your academic bank of credit will again get revitalized, and you will get the credit for that. So your education is not going waste. This part is held in NEP 2020 focus area number 6. It tells about governance and regulation. So the rules are being made for governance and regulation. Being a member of NAC, NAC is a National Assessment and Accreditation Council of India under UGC. It is also my statutory role to proliferate NEP and a dual role which I am doing as a mariner as well as a NAC assessor. And last but not the least, the focus area number 9 is what everybody has been talking about yesterday as well as today, is technical use and integration in knowledge. the technology, disruptive technologies are happening. How we take use of it, how we make use of it. Do not become slaves of the technology. Make use of the technology. The mindset which, through a lot of case studies, which people have spoken about here and other conferences, is because of technology or half knowledge of technology, accidents are happening. People call it technology-aided accidents, be it in APAC or something which was shown yesterday. Captain Kunal was there? Yes. So that kind of thing where you are not using technology to develop your IQ, EQ, SQ, but you are becoming a slave to the technology that, nay, there is something wrong, let me put a wrong position to say that I am right. I hope you are understanding what I am trying to say. Yes, you agree? If any doubt is there, please ask me. I also consider myself a student. I am not a teacher. I am ready to learn. And as we said, mentoring reversal process. Please ask
Captain
me.
Nigam, I think
I'm just concluding.
Yeah, because what you're saying is so interesting. It probably is
No, I'm
considering
concluding.
a
I
separate
have
session.
put a stopper. So that was the last thing which I asked, because generally after every lecture I ask my students, "Samajh mein aaya ki nahi?" So I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Captain Nigam is also the founder and president of the Maritime Trainers Guild, so he has a lot to share, and the students would benefit from an interaction with him separately. Yes. So, last panelist in this session is Uday Chaitanya Ganivada, who is a country manager for DNB in charge of India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Mr. Ganivada.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, respected panelists. So, all of us have been talking about the 3Ds, so I just take a step back of where it's coming from, the regulatory side, the regulatory update. If you look at IMO, it has come up with the targets of carbon reduction by 40% by 2030 compared to the levels of 2008 and 70% by 2050. So what that means to the shipping industry is that, it has to evolve. So we're talking about all the new fuels, be it LNG, LPG, methanol, hydrogen or ammonia. So just to put it in some numbers, if you see as of 2019, if you look at all the new ships that are being built, 6% of the ships as of 2019 are being built with alternate fuels. And that number doubled by 2021 to 12%. And as we speak, all the new ships that are being built is over 20% right now. So the regulatory requirements now initially start with all the new construction of ships, and slowly it becomes retroactive requirements and to the existing ships. If you look at our own backyard, for example, in Cochin shipyard, I don't know if any of you have seen, yesterday they have announced that they're building 2 new ships, which are world's first zero-emission ships. They're going to build with fuel cell. It's future ready for container ships for a Dutch owner. And they also, Cochin shipyard, I know last year they have delivered 2 autonomous ships for a Norwegian owner. So my point here is that the future is already here. The new technologies are coming, and as we speak, they are getting built. And just to not making things better, if you look at, because of the all the different technologies coming in, if you look at the cybersecure part, for example, from 2024, the new ships that are going to be built will also have to comply with the cybersecure requirements. We have had large passenger vessels, etc., where, because of the cybersecure hacking and all, they have lost like millions of dollars, and it's a lot at stake with because of the new technologies that are coming on board. So all in all, what I would like to conclude is that the regulatory updates are going to come, and there are more changes that are going to come, and I would like to conclude saying that change is the only constant. So as seafarers, we all have to be ready for the new updates, regulatory changes that are coming.
Thank you for those succinct answers. If I can just do a quick round, 30 seconds of just one question for each one of you. To what extent can the real teacher in person, the faculty, be replaced by AR and simulators? Jillian, can I start with you? Just 30 seconds, please.
Oh my goodness, to what extent? I think the implications there are pretty impressive. I think if we go back to some of the comments on continuing to learn and the concept of competence-based training, learning to focus on the outcomes, there's actually an opportunity to provide the tools then that we can use to learn, and that could include simulation. Now, to what extent? That's really hard to say, because actually the development of the training with those tools is going to be from an expert educator looking at the approaches that we can take. I believe that we really need to think about the concept of the seafarer of the future, the human-machine interaction, and fit that within the roles and responsibilities, the day-to-day life of the seafarer today. There was a really good comment about the last mile. So we know seafarers are key workers. We know that maritime really does matter. And in order to do this, I believe in a digital environment, we need to look at that sharing, mentoring, a creative approach to understanding where we are today so that we can make that move to where we are tomorrow. I'm sorry, I think that was more than 30 seconds.
Thank you, thank you. Would you like to say something? Yeah.
Well, I think we already see that a lot of trainings and all being carried out by AI, etc. As you mentioned earlier as well, several countries, metaverse is already in place. So there is no doubt it will be a combination of the future AI and the physical trainings that are going to be.
Okay, I've got the cue that this time's up. Do we have space for a question? Yeah. Okay. One question.
Answer your question in 10 seconds. In 10 seconds.
We start. Time starts now. Yeah.
Google it, what I just said about NEP and OP, and compare it with what I said. You'll get the answer.
From ChatGPT.
Yes.
It'll give you all kinds of. Yes, one question, a brief question, if anybody has. Yeah, things are very clear.
It's a brief question.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take the opportunity, since there are no questions, I'll go to what Dr. Malini Shankar asked. In my opinion, this attitude, which is, it's a combination of skill set, knowledge, and belief system. I believe the technology, no matter what you talk about it, is not yet ready to impart a value system. Yes, knowledge is passed on, skill sets are passed on, value system still comes from the instructor. So if you ask me, instructor can be replaced? I don't think so. It's still with us. Thank you.
Thank you for endorsing many of our views. So if there are no further questions, I'll just wrap up with a summing up of this. It's been a marvelous panel. I think they were so incisive in their comments that there were no questions. Very, very incisive inputs, and I'll just sum that up. Like I said, this talked about collaboration, they spoke about asynchronous training, including micro-learning and gamification, the forget curve and the self-learning content to retrieve it, last mile and effective delivery, and this I think is extremely important, and that's where the quality of the faculty comes in, and no machine can replace that part of it. It's not just what you deliver, but how you deliver. Then there was the NEP and the critical areas, and of course cyber security and the technology. I'll just sum up with one. See, one thing that I would like to see in building value for the future is how much research is happening in India. And when I say research, it's not just on fuel cells and stem cells and things like that, research on policies. When I read papers which emanate from other countries, seafaring countries, there's a lot of it, not just, simple things like how do you improve English or communication, which is relevant to that context, the cultural context. You can't just say what applies in Australia but can apply in India. It has to be mutatis mutandis. So perhaps there's a lot of research that can be done, and the faculty, keeping updated, keeping themselves updated with the developments, not just in technology, but also in the methodology of teaching, in the expectations of the industry. These are things that are very, very important, and that could get into industry-academia interaction for this. Because from many of these teaching methodologies, as well as tools that everybody has spoken about, comes from such research which has been conducted in either academic settings or in industry. And I will leave, and even delight. There's a happiness index. How do you build delight? Is it built in the classroom? Is it built in the ship? Is it built elsewhere? So these are things that need a lot of deliberations. And the last part about training and education, I'm just going to share one anecdote, and I close there. I was a very young officer, and this was the project on water supply and sanitation, which was supported by both World Bank as well as the British government. And they had organized, and we are talking about early 90s, when people didn't get a chance to stay in hotels. So they were organizing, if you stayed in a hotel, it was a very, very big thing, that too a 4-star, not even 5-star, right, and in a small place. So they were organizing a workshop in a hotel in Pune, and they had said, please nominate people and you also come. So I said, okay, I will come, I will nominate somebody, and I picked up the weakest link, because the person I've been trying to get work out of this person, he was a lower level functionary, and I had difficulty in trying to tell him to raise the standard, raise the bar, and say, this is what I want. So this workshop, I nominated him along with 2-3 others, and the trainer was from England. So I told her, you tell them I'm coming, but I'm not going to come, because if I come, they're not going to talk in my presence, or they're going to say only what I want to hear. So the 3-day training, I said, okay, add on, take your spouse and go and have an extra day, and I'll pay for it, okay? So this was a 2.5-day training. Person comes back on a Monday. This is just a weekend, so he was not even missing office. Comes back on a Monday, he says, Madam, Mala Kallo, I've understood what you want, and give me 1 week and I will deliver. So I said, okay, I don't know what he's understood, let's see what he delivers. At the end of the 1 week, he delivered what was not great, but I think quantum leap for him. And if you can get a quantum leap from somebody at the lower level in just 2 days, and that was a good learning, because never forget the training. Education is, and learning is also part of training, right? Learning is not just in education. So it's amazing if you know how to get your resource, who to train, how to train, and who will train. And you can put these 3 together, because the success of any organization or any entity is dependent on the strength of the weakest link.
Absolutely.
And that weakest link need not necessarily go through education, and just a little bit of motivation, a little bit of direction. So, sorry, that was a little bit of
Thank you, esteemed panel, for sharing your thoughts. It was indeed very insightful, really, very.
Thank you, and thank you, Shankar, for having given all of us the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
In fact, I now invite Shankar to come and present a token of our appreciation to the panel here. I'd like to invite Captain Mohan Naik to do the honors, along with Francisco, to please come up on this dais and, honor our esteemed panelists. I think we can do with a huge round of applause. I know there is a chill break awaiting all of us for some evening chow and coffee. I'd also like to thank Jillian, who...
Just make an announcement, Jillian, this is for Jillian.
Jillian, your memento will be shipped across to you. Yes, there will be a prize memento that will be shipped to you. And yes, Francisco is handing it over to Uday. I must say, stalwarts, everyone there from today, very insightful sessions. ladies and gentlemen, we can do a louder round of applause. Thank you to the esteemed panelists with us. Thank you. Thank you, Jillian, for joining us. It was indeed a pleasure to see you online and with us as part of the panel. Yes, Doctor. And also, Dr. Shankar says a big thank you for sticking to time. Captain Shankar.
Yeah, so we're running on time now for a change, ma'am.